as you guys know, we're only a month and a half away from the release of the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X. The interesting thing about this generation, though, that kind of sets it apart from previous gens, is that both Sony and Microsoft are offering cheaper versions of their console that have no disc tray, no physical media. You can only play digital games. So for the PS5, of course, we have the standard for $500, which has a disc tray, but for the digital edition, it's actually $100 cheaper at $400. And of course, the Series S is even cheaper than the Series X, which is a $200 difference. The Series X costs $500, and the Series S only costs $300. Now, of course, the prices, it's going to cost you a lot more money than you would think, because that 1 terabyte SSD for the Series X is actually, I think 200 gigabytes is for the OS, and that's the same thing for the 500 gigabyte SSD for the Series S. 200 of those 500 gigabytes will go towards the operating system, so you really only have 300 gigabytes, which is just insane. So you're going to actually be spending a lot more money for those consoles than you think you are. And when you really think about it, the Series S isn't really that good of a deal when you consider the fact that when you account for the operating system being used on the SSD for both the Series X and Series S, you'll have about 800 gigabytes on the Series X and 300 gigabytes on the Series S, and a 1 terabyte SSD will cost you about $200 something. I think that's what they're selling, the Seagate proprietary SSD that you have to buy. It would actually be a lot more cost effective for you to just get the Series X with the physical media, because the physical market, you can get games so much cheaper with that option than only being able to buy games from the Microsoft store. You know, that's one thing that people don't seem to realize. But the other thing with storage, you're going to break even on the Series S at best, because, I mean, it's also, keep in mind, it's a console that can't do 4K. It's less powerful than the Series X, and they did make some compromises to the performance, of course, in order to have that cheaper price. But between storage and not having physical media, you're actually going to be spending a lot more money in the long term than someone who actually puts the extra $200 forward for the Series X. But a lot of people don't realize that, and people just see, ooh, cheaper price tag, I'm gonna go and buy it, and that's what people are gonna do with the digital PS5 and the Xbox Series S, to the point where physical media will have even less of a presence next generation than it did this generation, and the decline is going to be even steeper than it has been in recent years. Now, this is something we've seen on PC for years, where the digital market has completely overtaken physical to the point where physical doesn't exist anymore, which has pretty much been the case for at least 10 years. Like, any physical copy you can get on PC, it'll have a digital game code. So yeah, physical media is pretty much dead on PC. No one has an optical disc drive on their PC. I can guarantee you most of the people watching this video that are into PC gaming do not have a Blu-ray drive or a DVD drive or whatever. And I think with these digital consoles being so heavily pushed by Sony and Microsoft this generation, I think we're going to see the complete collapse of the physical market on console, to the point where it'll be just like the way it is right now on PC, where the physical market has pretty much no presence. It's just non-existent. And I think come 10th generation, when we get the PlayStation 6 and Xbox whatever the fuck they call it, we're not going to get physical media at all. Like, they're not going to even sell consoles with disc drives in them. And that's for two reasons. One is that people are abandoning physical media anyway. Like, do you know a lot of people that really had a huge physical game collection on their PS4 or Xbox One? Like, digital media really took over this generation, and physical media has kind of been on a really steep decline over the years. I mean, there was a time halfway through the 7th generation where digital media really wasn't much of a thing. Like, yeah, you had the Xbox Live Arcade, you had the PlayStation Network, you had certain, like, indie games or smaller games that would be released exclusively on digital, but you didn't have, like, new releases come out physically and digitally at the same time. You would have to wait, like, years before a game finally got a digital release on the PlayStation Store, like, where you could buy it directly on a digital market and not have to go physical. And even towards the end of the 7th generation, I remember in 2011, you had Black Ops 1, which came out, like, 6 months after it got a physical release. So you didn't have, like, day one digital releases until, I would say, around 2012, 2013. And then 8th generation digital media just completely blew up. And I guess Stevie Wonder could have seen that coming because people love convenience. It's a lot more convenient to go to the digital store, buy the game, instead of going to GameStop, waiting on a long-ass line for a midnight release, or just going to GameStop, period. I mean, that going to that store is just an awful experience. They're always trying to sell you shit. They're trying to get you to buy this and buy that, get a warranty, and get a used copy for $5 cheaper than a new copy. Like, that's what they fucking do. I remember how fucking ridiculous that was, where you get a new game for $60 and they try to get you to get the game used for $55 because they get most of the profits that way. But for a $5 difference, why would I buy a used game from you guys? Like, and then they ask, oh, do you want to buy the new Hello Kitty for Nintendo DS? Like, get the fuck out of here. Like, they're always trying to sell shit. I think if they don't sell enough shit, though, like the people who work there, they get fired. So I can't blame them for doing that. It's their job, and if they don't do it, they lose their job, and that's unfortunate. But the thing is, if GameStop goes out of business, which I think it's inevitable that GameStop is not going to survive this generation. I would be so shocked if GameStop found a way to stay alive heading into the 10th generation of consoles. I just don't think it's going to happen. I mean, they're already having financial problems before these digital-only consoles, but I predict that with the PS5 and the next-gen Xbox, the majority of sales for those two consoles, they're going to be digital-only sales, because people are enticed by having that option of, you know, that cheaper option, $100 less, $200 less, that, you know, even if physical games are cheaper than digital games, which they are, people don't really care about that. And even with, you know, where you had the PS4, you didn't have a digital-only PS4. Every PS4 had a disc drive, but most people didn't bother. Most people only bought their games digitally because, like I said, it's more convenient. Especially if you're a working man or if you're a working woman and, you know, you don't really have a lot of spare time to just go out to GameStop and in a lot of cases, I mean, for me personally, the closest GameStop is a half hour away from my house. You know what I'm saying? Like, physical media definitely has a purpose for people who, let's say, have slower internet connection. Because you guys remember a year ago I was talking about how I mostly buy my games physically again. After only going digital, I'm going back to physical because of how awful my internet was. But now that my internet is good again, especially now that I switched to PC where physical really isn't an option, I don't really buy physical copies anymore. Like, I've probably only bought, like, 12 or 13 physical games during this entire generation, even though I know that physical is great. And you know, most of the physical copies I bought were because they were on sale, because they were on cheap. But usually if I get a brand new game, which I don't really do anymore, but back when I actually cared about the new releases, that's what I would do. I would just go on the PlayStation Store, preload it, and I'd be ready to go at midnight. So even without these digital-only consoles, physical media was on a steep decline. I know most people that I knew personally didn't really bother with physical copies of games. But since most of the install base won't even have the option of physical, I think most companies will just say, fuck it, we're not even going to have a physical release. And you're going to see that happen gradually over time. Maybe the first couple of years, everything will be the way it was, but over time, big AAA publishers like your EAs, they're going to say, fuck it, we're not even going to bother with physical anymore, because the decline is going to be so steep that it won't even make any sense. And, you know, that's the thing. Sony and Microsoft, they want to get rid of physical media because they make so much more money off digital sales. And they control the entire market. They also hate used games because they make no money off of that either. So the publishers and the console manufacturers, they would love nothing more. I think one of their biggest goals this generation is to see the total collapse of the physical market and to see that entire market just go away, because they make so much more money if that happened. You know, to manufacture a disc, you have to pay the manufacturer to distribute the disc. You also have to share your profits with GameStop, Walmart, whatever stores that sell it. But when it's just digitally on the PlayStation Store, not only do you control the prices, because with physical media, you have so much more cheaper games, but you also actually make money off of each and every sale. But with physical copies, you make a smaller profit, and in a lot of cases, no profit at all when we're talking about used games. So yeah, this is a move for console manufacturers to just get rid of physical media once and for all, and I think it's going to work. Because with these digital-only consoles, the demand for physical media is going to be even lower than it already is, to the point where you're not gonna get physical releases anymore. It's gonna happen, inevitably. But I wanna know what you guys think. Do you think physical media actually has a chance of surviving into the 10th generation? And if you are a console gamer watching this video, are you going to miss physical media if it goes away? Or do you really not care? I want to hear what you all have to say in the comments. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you guys again later. Peace.